Now, what year was this?
88.
Okay.
And I was 9. So then I was in the cadet org in Los Angeles, and for about the first year I was there, and how it would work is in the morning they had their own school. They like made their own school, but our teacher wasn't an actual teacher. They're just trained Scientology supervisors, but they don't have to have any formal education, don't even have to have a high school diploma. They're just the people who happen to get that job. And we would be bussed out to this school, and we'd sit all in a classroom. We wouldn't get lessons. The teacher wouldn't teach us anything, because that's against the rules in Scientology. The teacher's not allowed to explain anything to you. You're only allowed to read and clear the words you don't understand, like look them up in a dictionary.
So what kind of things would you read?
I don't even remember. Like math, I would just like read a math book or do like flashcard drills, and then make clay representations of what I was reading, things like that.
Did you learn anything?
I don't remember. I don't remember learning much. I don't remember any math that I learned. We weren't taught history. We weren't taught science. We weren't taught anything like that.
What were you taught?
I remember doing math, doing flashcards over and over to learn. I learned my multiplication tables. I think that's the only thing I remember that I actually learned. And they had these things like check sheets where they'd say like you'd have to do each thing and check it off and say like read this page, make a clay representation of what you read. Have someone give you a checkout on it, which means they ask you all like the words out of what you just read, and you have to tell the person exactly what they mean. And if you don't, you have to go look them up in the dictionary and do it over again. So that's like how we learned. If we acted up in class, we just got thrown out.
And then what would?
Then we'd just go sit out and play on the field and cause trouble or do whatever we wanted to do. So it wasn't like school. It was like killing time, really. So then, after school, we'd be bussed back and we'd be put to work. We had to go to the basement of one of their main buildings where they had just mounds and mounds and rooms of filing. Like filing of letters people had written into Scientology, all kinds of stuff. And we had to file it. And we had to like sort it all and file it all. And
this is your 9?
Yeah, I was 9. And I think we did that till about 9 at night. 8:30 or 9:30.
Wait, you're going to school in the morning.
Yeah.
And you're getting out of school at...
By the time we got bussed back, because the school they had rented was like a 45-minute to an hour drive away. So by the time we got back, I think it was about 5, and then we'd have dinner. I'd usually try and have dinner with my dad, and then I'd have to go back and work.
So you would have to come to the cadet org and have dinner with her there?
I think he used to pick me up or something.
I think, yes, I used to drop by, pick her up, and
I never wanted to go back, but I'd always tell him I had to go back, because they said I got in trouble. Like a couple times I didn't go back after dinner, and I got in big trouble. So I'd be like, oh, you have to take me back. I want to go back, you know. It was at such an early age, I already learned to like lie to my dad, because otherwise I'd get in trouble.
So you're working, you're going to school, you're having dinner, then you're going to work until 9 at night.
Yeah.
And you're 9 years old.
Yeah. And then we'd have to go to sleep on these cots on the floor. They were like a little metal frame, maybe like 4 feet long and like this wide, and with like canvas. And we'd go to sleep on those, and they had like these big blankets, and they'd cut them up, and we'd all get a piece of blanket. And we'd sleep on these cots or on the floor when we ran out of cots, until my mom came and picked me up. And she would come at like midnight, 11 or midnight. It was very strict there too, you know, lots of rules, lots of people, you know. They had an adult who was in charge of handling our ethics, handling us when we did something wrong, and she would yell at us and stuff. And at one point, I think I'd been there for maybe a year, and several things happened. There was a boy there who was really unhappy, and we had this like little building. There was a little building with like 2 big rooms in it, and there was a fence all around it with like a front and back courtyard, like concrete courtyard. And there was a billboard like next to it, and the boy got so upset one day he climbed up the billboard and said he was going to jump off.
How old was he?
He was maybe a couple years older than me. So I see this boy threatening to like commit suicide, so that kind of scared me. And then another boy threw a cockroach at me and punched me. So at that point I got really upset, and I told my dad I'm not going back. I called him, I said come pick me up, And I said, I'm not going back. And he, of course, didn't want me to go back. I was always the one saying, I have to go back, you know, making it sound like it was all wonderful. But I refused to go back. And I told my mom what happened, and I said, I'm not going back. And she said, you have to go back, you have to go back. And for weeks and weeks and weeks, or months, she pressured me, and she said, just come in and speak to someone, we'll work it out, come back, come back. And I said, no, I'm not going to come back. But I did continue to go to their school, because I had no other school to go to. So I go to the school, then when I got off school, I'd just go home to our apartment. But they kept saying, you can't keep going to this school. You can only go to this school if you're in the cadet org afterwards and you work, otherwise you're not allowed to go to school. So I'm not sure exactly how. I think I kept going to the school for maybe four to 6 months. And then they wouldn't let me go anymore, so my dad enrolled me in a private school, which was a Scientology school at my mother's insistence. She insisted I had to go to a Scientology school. It was called Ability Plus. And this school wasn't really an improvement over the last school. There was two classrooms, one for the young children and one for the older children. The teachers weren't necessarily credentialed teachers. We were taught with the same technology of study, with you can't have the teacher explain things to you, you have to read, you have to make clay, you have to clear your words in the dictionary. We used the same check sheets even that we had in the other place. And I think I learned a little bit more there, but I didn't learn much there either. And no one had ever graduated from this school. Nobody.
What do you mean?
No one had ever graduated school going to this school.
Whatever happened to the kids? What happened to them?
They grew up and they joined the Sea Org mainly, I think.
So these were all
14 or 15 or 16. It's all Scientology kids.
Mostly parents were Sea Org.
I don't think so, no. But the kids would join the Sea Org anyway. They'd be recruited. Or they would, go on full-time training in Scientology, not be in the Sea Org, but be training to be an auditor. Or they would take their GED, like their high school equivalency exam. Or, I don't know, they just never really got to the point of, no one had ever graduated, because the teacher's own daughter was always saying she was going to be the first person to graduate from the school. But they didn't even have a way to graduate people. Neither did they at the school I went to in the Sea Org, because that wasn't their purpose. Their purpose was just to school you to fill the legal requirement until you're old enough to go in the Sea Org. Because when I went into the Cadet Org, I had to sign the billion-year contract saying I agreed to be in the Sea Organization when I'm old enough. Otherwise I wouldn't be allowed there. And then I stopped going there and I started going to another school called Larry Dennison's Academy, and it was just in the morning from 8 to 12, and Sea Org kids did go there at the time. And that was even worse. It was his apartment, and we all sat in there at tables and like read books and stuff and just did nothing really. Watched
So by
TV.
now, how old are you?
Like 13. I went there for a few months and then stopped going there because it was useless. And then I was on course at the Celebrity Center. I started a course there. And I turned 14, and while I was on course, these two recruiters from Bridge Publications, which is a Sea Org, they say it's not. It's like it's incorporated by itself, but it's the organization that makes the books and things like that for Scientology. And really, everyone in there is a Sea Org member. So they say it's not, but it is. So they came to see me, and they told me if I went to work there, I'd get paid minimum wage, which would be, for a 14-year-old, it's like $300 a week. It's a lot of money. That I wouldn't have to wear a uniform, because many people had tried to recruit me before for the Sea Org, like from the age of 12, and I always said no, I didn't want to, but they said I'd get paid all this money, I wouldn't have to wear a uniform, it was really fun, and these guys were young, they were charismatic, they were good looking, and they sweet-talked me into it. Plus, I had always been very upset that I had let my mom down, and I knew she would be just like ecstatic if I joined.